If this keeps happening, I'm gonna move out of the city for sure, but potentially even move out of the country.
In the current global housing crisis, how are Airbnbs legal? Let's talk about it.
These people are in a silent depression, mostly crushed by a housing crisis. The question on their minds, just like every other Canadian, is the same. Are short-term rentals part of the problem? Is Airbnb sucking the life out of the great Canadian dream? Sadly, the stories are endless. The pain is everywhere. Meet this couple, for instance. Antione and Tianning are in utter shock, standing in front of the place they rented on Airbnb for 10 months in Toronto. Their deal with the Airbnb host was to live in the house for 311 days, paying around $5,000 every month along with taxes and Airbnb's fees. But what began as a hopeful dream turned into a terrible situation when in January, the host suddenly said they had to move out by the month's end. The answer is simple. The owners wanted to make more money by renting their place to tourists for short stays, rather than letting people like Antione and Tianning stay there for a long time. Shockingly, they had to pack their bags. But this isn't just their tale. It's the story of many Canadians as Airbnb is causing problems in the Canadian housing market. In today's video, we'll dive into the Airbnb crisis that's wreaking havoc over Canada's housing market and a possible solution to this disaster. It's really upsetting to know that Airbnb and big investors are causing a nightmare for regular people who just want a place to live in Canada. Imagine this. In British Columbia, there are about 28,000 homes that should be for people to live in, but instead, they're being used for short-term rentals. And what's even more horrible, a bunch of these houses are owned by companies, not local citizens who want to share their homes. To add to the crisis, homeowners don't plan to change their ways. In fact, they want to turn even more places meant for long-term renting into short-term stays.
And what about the places that you rent out as long-term rentals? Are they going to stay long-term rentals?
For the time being, yes. But slowly I will be converting everything to short-term rentals.
The problem is that when investors snap up houses and condos in Canada to rent them out on platforms like Airbnb, it means there are fewer houses left for regular people to buy. So with fewer homes to go around and more people looking for them, the prices of houses shoot up. This makes it extremely challenging for the average Canadian to find a home they can actually afford. From 2011 to 2016, around 322,600 affordable homes vanished from the market. These were places that people could rent for less than $750 a month, perfect for those earning less than $30,000 a year. And if that doesn't give you chills, the horror continued through 2021 when another 230,000 of these low-rent homes disappeared. So in total, we're talking about a staggering drop of around 500,000 affordable rental homes over 10 years. It's a really terrifying situation. But this vicious Airbnb cycle takes the story to an even bigger crisis: the soaring rents.
Back here in Toronto, whether you rent a condo, apartment, or a house, chances are you can expect to pay more.
It's really hard to grasp the crushing reality of how expensive and limited it is. Like 5 months, I saw every month average rent for places I was looking at go up and up and up and up.
Did you just hear that? Canadians can't even get houses with cheaper rents. It's a daunting and unattainable goal. Greedy property investors, drawn by the promise of quick money, are yanking their properties out of long-term rentals and putting them up on Airbnb. This mass exodus of rental homes pushes the number of available rentals into a dark, scary place. In this twisted tango of supply and demand, the shortage of rental homes forces landlords to demand ever higher rents from their tenants. With fewer places to rent, people find themselves locked in fierce competition for the scant available homes, and landlords seize the chance to squeeze more money out of those desperately seeking a place to live. Month after month, the cost of renting a home climbs higher and higher, eating away at the finances of those who can afford it the least. So in this bone-chilling tale, the shockingly expensive homes are creating a drought of available rentals, leading to a heart-stopping rise in rents. This spine-tingling chain of events leaves everyday Canadians trapped in a never-ending nightmare of affordable housing, where the dream of a safe and stable place to live feels like a ghostly illusion, forever just out of reach. It seems that the owners are living their quality of life at the expense of the tenants.
Totally understand it helps you live a better quality of life, but if that comes at the expense of other people being able to afford to live even sort of a basic standard of living, then I think that is problematic.
The impacts of this housing horror is even more deadly. In Toronto, the housing crisis, thanks in part to Airbnb, is pushing more and more people to the brink of homelessness. Currently, over 10,500 people in the city are without a home, according to the city's data. But this number doesn't tell the whole story. It only counts those who've managed to get into shelters. It doesn't include those turned away, left to survive on the streets, completely hidden from the view of city officials. Many people who end up homeless are in that situation because the shelters are overflowing and the housing prices are sky high. Some are rent-evicted, which means they're kicked out of their apartments, often because landlords want to raise the rent to make more money. Since Airbnb started in 2008, a significant number of homes that could have been rented by regular Torontonians have been turned into vacation rentals. This means that local people are now in a fierce competition with tourists for the few affordable apartments that are left. It's a tough situation, to say the least. In Canada, the ongoing housing crisis is much more than just a struggle for finding a place to call home. It's unleashing a chain of other horrifying consequences. The skyrocketing housing costs are causing financial distress for countless Canadians. People are wrestling with rents and home prices they can't afford, eroding their overall quality of life. Meeting basic needs is becoming a battle, and saving for the future seems like an unattainable dream. The spine-chilling reality is that some Canadians are contemplating leaving the country in search of more affordable living conditions. This brain drain of talented individuals is a frightful prospect. It means the country may lose those skills and creativity of its own citizens, which could have dire consequences for the economy and innovation. The constant turnover of short-term renters, often facilitated by Airbnb, is wreaking havoc on the sense of community in neighborhoods, and this is called gentrification. People come and go, making it difficult to build strong bonds and connections with neighbors. Communities are losing their stability and trust as long-term residents become scarce. It's a disheartening transformation, turning neighborhoods into transient places rather than the vibrant, closely knit communities they once were. But is there any solution to this? The Canadian government bears a significant responsibility for the escalating housing crisis, primarily because of the country's rapidly growing population, which is one of the fastest in the world. With such a population boom, the need for housing has surged, but the supply has failed to keep up, creating a perfect storm. The issue becomes even more dire when we consider the role of investors and platforms like Airbnb, which have taken advantage of this situation. Investors have swooped in, snapping up properties for quick profit, while Airbnb has effectively hijacked parts of the rental market. Both have contributed to the dwindling availability of affordable housing for ordinary Canadians. The government's response to this crisis has been inadequate, despite calls for regulation. While Quebec's recent efforts to hold property owners accountable and monitor transactions are steps in the right direction, the question remains, is it enough? To address this housing emergency, more robust solutions are urgently required. One key aspect of the solution should be stricter regulation to prevent properties originally designed for residential use from being turned into hotel-like rentals. Housing that's planned, zoned, designed, and built for residential purposes should remain as such and not be converted into temporary accommodations. Without better regulation in this regard, the situation will continue to worsen, leading to a horrifying scenario for Canadians. Additionally, the looming threat of a housing bubble only adds to the urgency. Such a bubble could burst at any moment, further exacerbating the housing crisis and leaving Canadians with even fewer options for stable and affordable housing. It's imperative that the government takes these concerns seriously and acts swiftly to protect the well-being of its citizens. To learn more about the Canadian housing crisis, check out this video here. And if this video brought value to you, please consider liking and subscribing. Thanks for watching.